Good morning. I begin by acknowledging the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Ms. Toni Moore, Member of Parliament. And other representatives of the Barbados Workers Union, the Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Cafil Campus, Professor Clive Landis, the Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore, the Director of the Office of Student Services and Development, Ms. Dale Lynch, members of our senior management and our exhibitors, members of the media, and all colleagues and students. Good morning. On behalf of the University of the West Indies Cafil Campus and the Office of Student Services and Development, I warmly welcome you to this panel discussion as part of the 10th UWI Cave Hill Job Fair. At this time, we will stand for the National Anthem of Barbados. We will now receive the welcome from our Principal and Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor R. Clive Landis. Kindly direct your attention to the screen.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to today's Jobs Fair. Today is in fact the 10th anniversary of the Jobs Fair. Unfortunately, I and all of senior management, in fact, are attending a competing meeting today. Otherwise, I would certainly have wanted to be here to bring remarks in person. The Jobs Fair is very close to my heart. In fact, it was developed while I was Deputy Principal back in 2016. The Jobs Fair has actually been an instant hit. It's popular with students. Normally we have around 400 students participating in the Jobs Fair. It's popular with the private sector, with the businesses that support the Jobs Fair. It's also popular with the labour unions who are represented here. So I really want to congratulate the Office of Student Services and Development, which is located in the Deputy Principal's office. And the important letter in OSSD is actually the D for development. And that is for the development of students, so that you are equipped not just with high quality degrees to compete and contribute in today's knowledge economy, but that you also are able to bring the qualities which we inculcate here at the university, so that you can assist in the development of the country. And what you may not know as students or as participating companies in today's Jobs Fair is what goes on behind the scenes in order to equip our students with relevant degrees. So the first, of course, is just the quality of all of our degree offerings. And as it happens, next month in April, we will have our institutional accreditation through the Barbados Accreditation Council. So all of our degree offerings, they're all fully accredited, can be transferred anywhere around the world. And in fact, the accreditors, although it's organized through the Barbados Accreditation Council, it's a very international affair. And the second point is not just the quality of the degree offerings, but their relevance in today's society. So over the past 5 years, we have undertaken an unprecedented upgrading of all of our degree offerings. As many as 1,200 courses are either new or have been revised. And in terms of full degree programs, we have new or revised 187 degree programs. These would be both at undergraduate and postgraduate level, and diplomas and certificates. So we always want to ensure that the programs that our students are taking, that they can apply them in today's world, that they're truly relevant. So we feel that we are feeding into the second statement in the Declaration of Mission Barbados 2030, which is to transform Barbados into a country of active, involved citizens. All Barbadians will feel empowered and engaged in the social, economic, and cultural development of the country. And so we have put a lot of emphasis into programs such as interesting minors, which can be paired with a variety of majors, sometimes across faculties and disciplines. So, for example, we have a number of language minors, such as in Spanish, Chinese, and French. And so, you could, for example, be a student with a major in computer science with Spanish, or computer science with Chinese. We've also developed interesting minors, for example, in food science or in sustainability of the Caribbean. So this allows students to tailor their studies to be relevant to a sector and to have those high order skills which the country is looking for. So we feel that as a public university, the jobs fair is very important to us, not only for the sake of the students and their development. We want to see them in good, productive jobs, but also for the country and the region, so that our students, with the skills and the qualifications which they have earned, can help drive the social and economic and inclusive development of the Caribbean region. So it just remains for me to thank all the participants. I wish you all an enjoyable and a productive day.
I want to thank our principal for those remarks. And at this time, we will hear very briefly from our Deputy Principal, Professor Winston Moore. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Member of Parliament and General Secretary for the BWU, Tony Moore. I always love to acknowledge Tony Moore, not only because she has my last name, or our last name, but because she also went to a school, a university that I wouldn't mention this morning in order not to encourage any boos coming from the audience. Colleagues from the BWU, exhibitors, UWI family, students, good morning, everyone. We are happy to be hosting this panel discussion with the Barbados Workers Union, a partnership which I mentioned this morning when speaking to my colleagues from the BWU is not that obvious, because normally colleagues from the senior management are sitting across the BWU negotiating in relation to salaries for staff. And it's sometimes a little bit hostile environment, but this morning, we're not having a hostile discussion. We're actually partners in relation to this panel discussion. But when you think about this, the partnership between the BWU and the UWI Cape campus is actually a not something that is not unnatural. It's actually a quite natural partnership. The BWU has spent decades advocating for the dignity of workers, for fair wages, for safe working conditions, and for the rights of every working person to be treated with respect. The UWI, on the other hand, has spent decades producing graduates who enter the world of work. So we therefore share a common interest in ensuring that the handoff between these two things goes well, and that our graduates land in workplaces that recognize their value and that the world of work is better for them when they enter it. I'm also, if you know anything about me, I never miss the opportunity to have an economics lecture in any of my remarks. So if you do not like economics, unfortunately, you're in the wrong place. I did a little bit of calculations in order to, add a little bit of lightness to this morning. And I really want students to not really underestimate the quality of their degree, the importance of their degree. And if you look at the numbers in relation to the value of the degree, the numbers are actually quite significant. If you compare the returns on the investment that you make in relation to your university degree, the returns on that investment is actually around 12% per year over your lifetime. Now, if you compare that to how much you would receive if you put that money in a bank account, that's nowhere close to 12%. So you're making a significant return on your investment when you invest in your university studies. And that return on that investment grows larger over time. So the typical university graduate, their wage premium, the economists love to use these terms, that wage premium is essentially the difference between your salary that you would make if you had a university degree compared to the salary that you make if you didn't have a university degree. When you first leave university, in those first 5 years, the wage premium is around 7%. Over your lifetime, by the time you reach my old age, that wage premium rises to around 60, 70%. So there's a significant return on investment through your university degree. And there's also a significant benefit of just being located in CARICOM. People underestimate the benefit of being a CARICOM, a graduate from the University of West Indies, living and working in CARICOM. CARICOM is actually a very large market when you think about it. So yes, Barbados is a small, open economy, but the region as a whole is quite large. The GDP for the entire CARICOM region is around $90 billion. That is a significant amount of economic activity, significant amount of work that persons can engage in if they work for businesses in the Caribbean, if they develop businesses in the Caribbean as well. And the size of the job market is around 18 million persons within the Caribbean. So there's a lot of opportunities in the Caribbean. Persons are deciding to work in the region and provide services to the entire world. So this is a really great time to be part of this, to be leaving the university, to be studying at the university. There are many new areas of economic activity popping up: renewable energy, digital services, creative industries, agro-processing, health tourism, and the University of the West Indies has degrees in all of those areas. So it means that we're preparing students to exploit and to be members of this world of work in the future. So I really want to thank the panelists for their time this morning. I want to thank all of the exhibitors for being here this morning. And I want to thank the students for tuning in to this session this morning. I know this is going to be a really great session, so I'm looking forward to this panel discussion. Have a great one.
Thank you, Deputy Principal, for setting the strategic context for today's conversation and for underscoring the importance of preparing our students to maximize on this investment. At this time, we also want to extend some thanks to our valued partner, the Barbados Workers Union, for their continued collaboration in bridging education and their realities of employment. To our panelists, invited guests, faculty, staff, and most importantly, our students, welcome. Today's discussion, Borders Can't Block Your Path, focuses on how you can access opportunities, build experience, and position yourselves in an increasingly global and competitive environment. My name is Dr. Dawn Marie Holder, Career Counseling Specialist at the University of the West Indies and the coordinator of the World of Work program. Without further ado, I invite Ms. Miracle Ann King, Communications and Information Specialist at the Barbados Workers Union, to introduce our panelists and moderator. Ms. King, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. With protocols already established, I will get right into what we're here to listen about. Before I even get into it, as was mentioned earlier by the deputy principal, a lot of the times when we meet with employers, it can be a little hostile, and even sometimes with the UWI. And is often around across the table and is not often comfortable. But this is what we pride ourselves on, advocating strongly, standing firm, and still being able to come together, put differences aside, and focus on building a better future for all. So we move into what promises to be a very engaging and insightful panel discussion, Borders Can't Block Your Path. And today we are joined by a dynamic group of professionals who each bring unique perspectives, passion, and even experience to the conversation. So please join me in welcoming first our moderator, our very own, your very own UWI student, Mr. David Broomfield. He is a law student with a strong interest in taxation, immigration, and public law. He currently serves as a tax and immigration intern at Tailored Tax Solutions in Barbados, where he is gaining practical experience in tax compliance and advisory work. He previously held several student leadership roles, including first-year law representative for the Law Society and public relations officer within NACC UWI Val and the UWI Guild of Students, as well as contributing to the Jamaican Student Association at Cave Hill. David has also demonstrated a strong aptitude for legal research, having completed a research paper in Barbados assessing Barbados's 2025 immigration and citizenship bills, where his findings were referenced by his supervisor at the 8th biannual CCJ conference. He brings a thoughtful, analytical approach to legal problem solving and is particularly interested in how the law can meaningfully impact people's lives and contribute to sustainable development of a country. Let's welcome Mr. Broomfield. I move on over to our panelists. I will start first with Mr. Randy Clark, who is directly behind me, the only male on the panel. Mr. Randy Clark serves as Assistant Chief Labor Officer in the Labor Department within the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, and the Third Sector. In this role, he contributes to the development and implementation of labor policies and programs aimed at promoting decent work, strengthening labor relations, and advancing social protection and social justice. With extensive experience in labor administration, Mr. Clark plays a key role in supporting national efforts to ensure compliance with local and international standards, enhance workplace equity, and foster constructive dialogue among government, employers, and workers. His work also supports Barbados's engagement with regional and global labor initiatives. Mr. Clark is committed to advancing fair and inclusive labor systems and contributing to sustainable socio-economical development. Welcome, Mr. Randy Clark. Then we go over to my own comrade, Mrs. Shakita Williams. She is a passionate and unwavering advocate for youth and women, dedicating over 15 years to empowering others and championing meaningful change. Her lifelong commitment to advocacy is reflected in both her professional leadership and community engagement. She currently serves as Executive Assistant to the General Secretary at the Barbados Workers Union, where she plays a critical role in grievance handling, security oversight, and property management. Beyond her national contributions, Shakita holds several influential regional and international positions, including Vice President of the IUF Caribbean Women Workers and Domestic Workers Committee, Vice President of the IUF Youth Global Executive, and a member of the Committee of the Working Youth of the Americas. Accomplished, she holds an associate and bachelor's degree in government and political science, sociology, psychology, along with a master's degree in labor and employment relations, earned with distinction. Her educational journey reflects her deep commitment to understanding and addressing social and labor issues. Driven by purpose and guided by the words of Mr. Gandhi, live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever, Shakita continues to lead with integrity, resilience, and a vision for a more equitable and just society. Our third panelist is Mrs. Tiffany Brooms. Tiffany Brooms completed her formal education at the UWI with a bachelor's in social work and the Edinburgh Napier University with a master's in business and human resources management. This is a foundation on which Tiffany has built to positively impact lives through her work. In addition to her full-time role as a human resource manager at Sagicor Life, Inc., Tiffany founded Barbados' most diverse annual career mentorship program in 2020, the First Chances Mentorship Program, which pairs aspiring and developing professionals with established practitioners in their desired field. Tiffany initiates a developmental process that fosters both the professional and personal growth of the mentee over a 6-month period. She was listed as one of the 6 Caribbean millennials you must follow on LinkedIn by Alternative Concepts Marketing, and in 2021 was announced as one of 26 women selected for the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs with the U.S. Embassy, a program that gained over 300 applications. Let's welcome Tiffany Brooms. Our final panelist is Ms. Kiana President. She is a young marketing and communications professional with a background shaped primarily by internships at companies such as CG United and It's Barbados, along with her professionalism in her current role as marketing and communications consultant at the Barbados Accreditation Council. She has developed practical skills in brand communications, campaign coordination, social media management, and media relations. Kiana holds a bachelor's degree in psychology with first-class honors from the UWI Cave Hill campus and is known for having strong foundation in both creative execution and strategic support. I now hand over to our moderator to guide us through what promises to be an engaging and insightful discussion. Thank you. Over to you, David.
Okay, it's going good. Thank you very much, Miracle. Good morning to everyone. It is truly an honor to be here at the job fair this year, especially as we celebrate the 10th anniversary. Under the theme, Borders Can't Block Your Path. And that is a theme that resonates with me deeply, not just as an idea, not just as a theme, but as a lived experience. In 2023, I made a decision that would have changed the trajectory of my life. As a Jamaican student, I had the option of UWI. It was very simple, but I was faced to make a choice. Two choices: either remain in my immediate environment or I go beyond the borders of Jamaica. And for me, that was not just physical borders, but mental borders. Importantly, the options were NYU in New York or UWI in Barbados. And to my family, or most of my family, it was a simple decision. But I did not just look at it as I'm going to a university. I was thinking about how the university aligns with my future, how the university aligns with opportunities that I'm looking for, and how the university aligns with my personal development in a globally competitive environment. And so it was very critical. And so that's the essence of the discussion that we're going to be having today. Borders cannot block your path. The first question that I'm going to ask to frame that conversation today is, just like me, what one experience would you have had, and this is to all the panelists, and we'll start with Shadika, one experience that you would have had that would have changed the trajectory of your life and your career and would have opened you up to opportunities that you would not otherwise have and opportunities that you also look forward to. And I'll start with Shadika.
Good morning, David, and thank you. And I wish to thank both the Barbados Workers Union and University of the West Indies Cave campus for the opportunity and affording me to be here on this panel today. The question is quite interesting, and I'm not sure that there was one thing that led me on the path, but what I would say is that, ironically, I call myself CARICOM baby because my mother is Guyanese and my father is Vincentian. And they met here in Barbados and made me. So that was the starting point. My foundation was laid there. Having the opportunity to see them experience working here as migrants coming in with the cultural clashes, and as funny as it may sound, the language barriers within our household with everybody having their own Creole, particularly them understanding me after going to school and coming back home with my Bajan dialect. But I will say that my first working experience, because it was very hard finding a job leaving the University of the West Indies, because I was narrow-minded and tunnel-visioned and focused on something here in Barbados at the time. And my first working experience was, I would say, the worst that I've ever heard in stories. And seeing and experiencing how young people who went to school with me working at that particular establishment, how they were treated to, it pushed me to come into university again and do a master's in labor and employment relations. And I promised those young ladies at that establishment that I'm coming back for you. And I'm coming back with people behind me and a support system to ensure that the things that you are experiencing within this working environment should never happen to you again going forward. And as much as I can in my power, shouldn't happen to anybody else. And that's how it ended up at the Barbados Workers Union through an internship program. So I would say that those critical elements of my life, my journey leaving university, my experience within the environment that I was raised in, is what put me on this path, this trajectory, in order to be where I am today and continue to be able to push forward for the development and advancement for workers and young people like yourself.
Thank you. And Randy, let's hear your view.
For me, I started as a junior officer in the Ministry of Labor, and it's when University of West Indies offered Labor and Employment Relations as a bachelor's degree for the very first time in 2008 or 2007. For me, it was like a no-brainer. I'm working in the Ministry of Labor Department, and I did my degree, and then that led to opportunities for me to advance within the ministry. So for me, one of the biggest things I would say is to my hunger for knowledge to improve my capacity within the ministry and like assisting others, not only locally but on the global scale as well. Because a lot of work we do with our international partners in collaboration with the Barbados Workers Union and the Barbados Employers Confederation as well. A lot of work we do with University of West Indies. So like Professor Moore would have alluded to some information earlier. And like we did the green scoping study with Professor Moore a couple of years ago. And he has revealed that there's a new paper going forward. All of that in an effort to have newer and better jobs for young persons, that we at the ministry to ensure that they're decent and fair for young persons. So for me, it would be being in an environment that fostered my growth, and then with UE for the first time ever offering labor and employment relations as a first degree, as a bachelor's degree. That's what started my trajectory to where I am today.
Okay, thank you. And briefly, Kiana and then Tiffany.
So how my trajectory started was, obviously, I was a student at the University of the West Indies, class was 2025. And throughout then, I would have had a number of internships at various companies. It was definitely, could have been a challenging experience transitioning from a full-time university student to an intern, now to a full-time working professional. But I would say what really shapes my approach to how I work is the knowledge that I have to take initiative. I have to be open and willing to learn, open and willing to ask questions. That's definitely how I would consider my approach, because it hasn't been an easy journey. There's been a lot of rejection. You have to have a lot of resilience in coming into the workforce as a young person with not that much experience and dealing with feelings of self-doubt and feeling like you don't know what you're necessarily doing, but it's just having that resilience and remaining focused is really allowed me to shape my approach into how I carry on my work.
Thank you. And Tiffany?
For me, when I started out in my career, I started in administration, which was not necessarily where I wanted to be. And similar to Kiana, in sending out applications for HR opportunities, there was quite a bit of rejection. I pivoted a bit and I got an opportunity to do an internship in human resources, which was very risky, leaving an actual paying job to do an internship, but it significantly paid off and has taken me places and taken me through my career to where I am today. And so what shaped my trajectory was being given that opportunity. Quite an unconventional path, but it worked for me. And so what I intend to do and will continue to do is also give other persons those opportunities, particularly those who may be in a position where they're facing much rejection and may not be what a traditional student, intern, or professional in a specific industry looks like.
Thank you. So I've heard diversity, I've heard rejection, and I've also heard barriers to entry. So that's actually a segment that we're getting into now, breaking barriers. And having gone through the process of relocating myself, there are some challenges, barriers to entry into the workforce. I'm going to start with you, Kiana. From an immigration point of view, what are some of the barriers students can face? So can I, as a Jamaican national, move to Barbados, study here, and change my status from a student visa to work and reside in Barbados? How am I able to do that?
That would definitely be a more complex process through immigration. So at the Accreditation Council, what we do is offer our skills certificate service. So that allows you to travel throughout the region and to work freely throughout the CARICOM region in other member states without the need for a work permit from immigration. It's generally a very easy process. It takes a minimum of 7 to 10 working days. That's not the usual when you go the immigration route. Yes, there is a comprehensive list of documentation that you will need, that you will find on our website, bac.gov.bb, but it's generally a very easy process, and that makes the process a lot easier for students, specifically in the category of graduates and holders of associate degrees, because a lot of students don't know that their CAPE certificate allows them to be eligible for a skill certificate under that category of holder of an associate degree. So applying for that undergraduate and the previously mentioned category does, with the skill certificate, definitely removes that barrier, such a complex barrier for working throughout the region.
Okay, thank you. And is it an expensive process, Kiana?
It's an application fee of $100.
Okay, so fairly cost economical. Now, Tiffany, the same question. Sorry, Randy, the same question. What are some of the biggest barriers, challenges to entry into the workforce?
So access to information is a big barrier for young persons. So to add to what my colleague said, there are now 13 categories under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. Aviation has just been added. So if a lot of young persons will not know that, they will not know that they can move throughout the region. If they are into aviation or aviation-related jobs, they can move throughout the region. Right now, Barbados is one of 4 countries that is signatory to the full free movement. So it's Barbados, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Belize. You can move freely as a student to any one of those 3 countries as a Barbadian, and similarly vice versa. But access to information to know which country you're moving to, even locally, what jobs are available. So activities like this are needed because young persons need to know the information, what they're studying, and what the job market requires, where the demand for work is.
Okay, and you have identified an opportunity now. How can students better position themselves to take opportunities that may not exist, that exist outside of their immediate environment? And I'll ask Tiffany and Shadika to answer that question.
Opportunities that exist outside of the immediate environment?
Yes, please.
All right, so it means firstly that persons would need to make themselves available and in a position where you are able to see these opportunities. As we are speaking about borders, it can be easy to feel as though you have to stay within a specific space in order to advance or to do anything in life. And that is really a self-limiting belief. So I encourage persons to make sure that you engage in different community groups, different workforce groups, make sure that you are aware of, firstly, what you want to do. Understanding that first would give you the opportunity to then develop and take your path from there. But putting yourself in a position where you understand who, what, and where would be important.
Okay, and Shadika?
So what my colleague said is interesting and paramount to the conversation. It is now significantly easier to be able to move freely across the Caribbean region. I'll share this with you. My parents had been here for over 40 years. They received citizenship last week, Thursday. They are now retired. So I'm glad that we have not only Barbados, but within the CARICOM regional neighbors, community, that we are seeing the importance of what Sir Arthur Lewis has expressed eons ago, and the importance of integration. So we've got that part out of the way. It is easier. And my colleagues mentioned those countries where you don't need any certification to go in. So Dominica, Belize, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados. But to those other CARICOM countries, you need the certification still, those permits and so on, but it is still easier for you to be able to go to those places and work. As Tiffany said before, you need to remove the veil of ignorance into thinking that you have to be stagnated or pigeonholed within your own nation state. There are a number of opportunities in a lot of sectors across the Caribbean region, and I think it is access to information, as Randy has expressed, and people not seeing them, or they may be on social media and they're there before your eyes, but you're afraid because you're accustomed to your own culture and you're afraid of going out. And I want to commend you as a young Jamaican who left everybody home and come to a new country without that support system that you would ordinarily have. But what we've learned over the years is that within the Caribbean region, we're all practically the same, and so your support system then stems and develops as you network socially at the university. That is extremely important because you're going to meet other colleagues from other countries. You network with people like us who are here at the panel discussions that will be able to share information more with you on those opportunities that you have outside. So you just need to go looking for them, intentionally looking for them, and I am sure that you would see that there are people like Tiffany, HRs like Tiffany, who are willing to give the assistance, the experience that everybody asks young people for, 10 and 15 and 16 years experience. I don't know how they expect them to get them at the end of university, but she's willing to give them the experience so that they can say, hey, this is a fielder, because you never know, what you studied at university may not be where you end up at the end of the day.
Thank you, Shadiko. And like you too, I am a son of CARICOM. I've actually changed my status here to indefinite stay through CSME and through access of information through the University of the West Indies, Dr. Holder, I was able to get my internship now. But entering the workforce, I have realized it's not just about your degree. So I will be awarded my degree in a couple months. It extends beyond. So this is to Tiffany. I want it from a private sector perspective and from a public sector perspective. And Randy, what do employers really look for beyond qualifications when hiring young graduates?
Okay, well, firstly, congratulations in advance on your completion. So young persons, we look for something different because, of course, we know young persons do not have the 15 years that Shakira spoke about. So character. What is your character like? How are you as an individual? What are your values? Those are things that we look for. And you may notice in interviews for internships and entry-level positions for younger persons, the questions are more tailored and centered around those things. So we're not going to ask you to tell us about your experience in XYZ because we know that that is not what you are bringing. But you are bringing your innovative and creative mind. You're bringing your ideas, and those are things that are valued by employers. I would also say to you from a practical perspective that it is good to get involved in your community groups and your associations at the UWI because these things also help to build experience and to build the mindset that will help prepare you for the world of work. And if you do those things, it helps shapes you and it positions you a bit differently to other persons, and that shows up in interviews as well. So yes, you are going to university, yes, you do not have the experience, but there are also those other things that you can do to help complement what you may not complement, but rather to pretty much give you that edge over what you may not have. And you don't focus on what you don't have, focus on the value that you're going to bring to that employer.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Notwithstanding that, however, a challenge that young professionals will face is that they'll see an entry-level position and it requires 3 years of experience. How then do we come and apply? Do we apply? And if we get accepted to an interview, what do we present to the interview, the HR personnel there?
Sure, so I go back to those community groups and those associations. All of that is experience. And sadly, sometimes young people do not see it that way because it's not labeled as a job that's paying you a salary, but you're still earning valuable experience and skills that you bring into the workplace. And I can speak for my employer, which was mentioned earlier. Those are things we look at. So yes, we sometimes might put on an ad that may ask for 3 years experience, but we have younger persons who apply and they're given an opportunity to show up in that interview and represent themselves. And many times they're successful in getting a role in our organization. So don't let that limit you in terms of not having that 2 to 3 years experience that the employer may be asking for. If you feel as though you have other value that you can bring and you can do the job, emphasis on you can do the job. I'm not saying to apply for the role of a physician. If you're still at university, we still want to be practical, but if you believe that you can do the job and you can show that in the interview, why not? You don't have anything to lose. I'm not saying it's going to be easy because every employer is not the same, but we still need to believe in ourselves and bet on ourselves.
Thank you. And we're running on a little bit of time crunch, so I'm going to ask Randy briefly to answer the same question.
So employers are, from where we sit in the Ministry of Labor, employers are saying that a lot of young persons don't have the soft skills, the analytical skills that they are requiring. I would say, to add to Tiffany's, what she said, some employers are doing assessments before you even get to the interview stage. So they throw cases at you to find out, even if you don't have the experience, how would you perform, what would you do given this scenario? So those are some things to consider. And additionally, to add the last thing, young persons should consider internships with organizations, even if it's not paid. That adds to your experience as well.
Okay, and Randy, what are some of the soft skills? Because that's actually not
right. So attitude, etiquette, how you perform in a team environment, analytical thinking. Those are some things. So university will teach you the hard skills that you need for the job you want. And some employers are complaining that the attitudes of the young persons are not really up to par for what they're looking at. Well, yes, you may have the essential skills to perform a task. How you relate to your internal, external customers or stakeholders is very important for them.
Okay, and let's say I have been to an interview now and I am rejected. How do I handle that rejection? And I'll ask Keanu and Shadiko to give me a response to that.
Definitely, you have to gain a sense of resilience, because sometimes it's not even a rejection, it's no acknowledgement whatsoever. So you really have to gain a sense of resilience in saying that, okay, you could also use that downtime to sharpen your skills, hone those soft skills, your hard skills. If there's anything you could do, a free course, etc., so that when you do get the opportunity, you're even more ready, you're even more prepared.
And Shadiko?
So, David, I faced rejection several times when I left university after doing my first degree, pounding pavement consistently. And you're correct, sometimes they don't even acknowledge it, and often hearing you're overqualified. So then I started adjusting my CV and leaving out the bachelor's and putting other things so that I can at least get my foot into the door. It is depressing, it can be very hurtful, it can be challenging, I'll be honest with you. It can deter you from wanting to continue to go on. But what is paramount, and some of the others said it before, is that you find your niche. Use some of the information that they've given to you when you do get feedback as criticism that can develop you and assist you in what Tiffany did, pivoting. And ensuring that when you're ready for that next interview, that some of the weaknesses you had before, you use it as your strength, then because you have an understanding of what is expected of you. So just continue pushing forward. You will not have an easy road in all instances. You will not get a sailing ship going through from university to get the job that you want initially, but you continue to press forward because what is waiting for you at the end of the tunnel is worth it.
Right. And I see Randy on his LinkedIn, he had workers, employees versus employers, and that dichotomy there. And so now we're going to segue into the rights. Can workers and an employer coexist in an environment? So what rights and responsibilities, Shadiko, to you again, do I have in an organization?
It is possible for workers and employers to coexist. And what people forget is that the Barbados Workers Union is also an employer. So we have that discussion constantly internally as well. The rights and responsibilities, I would say, for any university student or young person is get familiar with all of them. Firstly, you have to know that you have rights and responsibility. You have freedom of association. That's your constitutional right. So that's the first part to start on. Things like contracts that are a figment to imagination of many workers in Barbados and across the international scale is something that we are working on. Ensure that you know the details of what it is that you're getting into and agreeing to. And just because somebody presents you with a document with this information doesn't mean you have to accept all of it. Ensure that you read and you understand it. Your safety and health legislation, get familiar with the legislations. Right now, I know that CARICOM and the heads of government, they're working on ensuring that right across the Caribbean regions, that the legislation for labor is in sync, so that as you move around, you don't have to worry about people saying, well, that's what you're accustomed to in Barbados, but not what we're accustomed to here in Trinidad and Tobago. So those are things that you have to learn, and once again, seek the information intentionally.
Okay, and Randy, how do you work under the Minister of Labor with BW? Very briefly.
We have a good harmonious relationship with the Barbados Workers Union. They sit on a lot of our associations locally and regionally and internationally. So we have a good relationship with them.
Okay, and this is to Tiffany and also Shadika. If I feel like I need to advocate for myself in an organization, something bad has happened, how do I approach HR? Do I approach HR? Of course, we have interpersonal relationships, so my supervisor, for example, may be the friend of the HR manager. How do I advocate for myself in such a scenario? Tiffany.
I think the first thing to do is to make sure that you assess the situation accordingly. What are the facts and what is actually happening? I would also encourage persons to document, because if you're being unfair, you want to make sure that you have all the information as much as possible. Our memories aren't always the best. And if you're advocating for yourself, it means that possibly you were overlooked for something. And so if you feel as though you should not have been, make sure that you speak to that person if it's your manager. So we're not going to human resources just as yet. We're going to try to handle it on our own if we feel empowered and encouraged to do so. You speak to your manager or your supervisor and you explain how you're feeling, what you've observed, and share why you feel as though you should have been given a similar opportunity, and try to understand from them, what could I have done differently? And that puts them in a position where they need to explain that to you, if they have a real reason.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. I think Tiffany would have adequately answered that. So, but I'm going to ask you, Shakita, at what point do we turn to BW if we feel our grievances would not have been met with the internal systems?
You should not wait till when you have a grievance to turn to the Barbados Workers Union. In fact, having heard us today and having seen us on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on our website that we have recently launched, our new website, Afresh Again, you should get affiliated and join the Barbados Workers Union as soon as you finish, and even when you're going into those internships, because we also offer education, we also offer counseling on interviews, CV writing, how to develop yourselves, how to face the same HR manager should something happen or you feel overlooked. So I think that it is a great step into the world of work, is to first be able to understand all of the responsibilities that you have, not only for your employer, but for yourself, so to make sure that you do justice to yourself as a worker.
Okay, and this is to all of the panel, to the panel. If all students here is to take 1 or 2 actions in the next 2 to 3 months to improve their chances of success, what should that be? And I'll start with Kiana.
Definitely looking into student organizations. Those play a really big role in getting you volunteer experience on the executive, experience with your leadership skills. So definitely looking into that. People, like that was mentioned, they don't really see volunteering as a job. They don't see it as an experience, but it's very vital. It's also something that you can use on your CV, and employers like to see when young persons go and put themselves into the community and volunteer. So I would definitely say look more into these student organizations here at UWI within your community to get some more volunteer experience. That definitely helps.
Okay, thank you. And briefly, Randy.
Networking. I can't add any more to what she said. Networking is key. Network as much as possible. Friends are friends. You're seeing professors here and what's not. Networking is key.
Okay, and Shadika.
Yeah, so similarly, networking is paramount. Yes, the volunteerism is ideal for you to be able to gain any necessary experience, but also continuing to educate yourself. When you leave the university, your education journey does not stop there. In fact, it has just begun. And so you continue to be informed, continue to be present, so that when you go before any panel, they can ask you anything. They can ask you what is going on between Trump and Iran, and you should be able to respond to them to see how you can deal with something as simple as conflict resolution within the workplace. So I think that those things that my colleague said, and ensuring that you equip yourself consistently, being up to the times, is very, very important.
Tiffany?
Excellent points made. I'll add 2 things quickly. 1, understand your value proposition and be able to explain that effectively in an interview so that you are able to communicate how employing you will make a difference and add value to that organization. And 2, to add to the networking, realize that at the University of the West Indies, you are rubbing shoulders with future leaders, not only in Barbados, as we are speaking of beyond borders, but across the Caribbean and the globe. So being able to maintain the relationships that you build at university is going to be critical for your future.
Thank you. And now we're going to invite questions from the audience, if any.
All right, so thank you very much for sharing with our students. And I just want to, I really appreciate the fact that you were honest around rejection and the need for resilience. And you talked about networking. One of the things that, as David would have shared in his introduction, is about taking the step to leave home. And we see a lot of persons come into Barbados but sometimes we may not see Barbadians moving at the same rate. So to our Barbadian students who are around and visiting the fair today, what might be some steps that you might give them to consider about making that transition, not just in terms of considering a job here in Barbados, but somewhere else, even if it's a neighboring environment like St. Vincent and Belize and some of the doors that have been recently opened for us. Anyone can take it.
I would say it really boils down to opening up your mind. I do not believe that there are a shortage of opportunities where persons can work abroad. Briefly, I was involved in something that I reached out to you about where university students would have gotten the opportunity to work overseas in North America. And the interest was very, very low. And that was quite surprising given the opportunity. It was a fantastic opportunity. So open up your mindset to, again, going beyond the borders and take advantage of every opportunity that is possibly available to you. Because what can start as an internship could boil down to eventually a job in a couple months or a year. So don't be limited by what you see around you. Yes, our parents, perhaps they stayed in Barbados, so that's what we are accustomed to seeing. But there's so many opportunities available now that they might not have had the chance to take advantage of back then. So we are in a different time, and I would encourage young persons to create and develop a global mindset when you're approaching your career.
Wrap up. Okay, great. So that brings us to the end of our panel discussion today. We have covered a lot, barriers to the workforce. We have covered entering the workforce, soft skills that you need to develop in the workforce, how diversified it is. And I also want to thank the audience for being here with us today. And yes, thank you very much for such a riveting and insightful discussion. Oh.
Oh, hi, good afternoon. Morning, sorry. So I have two questions. One would be directed to Tiffany, and the other would be Randy. So Tiffany, my question to you would be, as a young person now entering the workforce, I've interned since my first year, currently in my third year. So one of the things, the challenges that I feel like some young people are facing is that when we do these internships, some of the companies would, so we're doing the role, operating the role, you're actively training us, but then leading to actual employment, we're often facing, we need these degrees, we need you to have your degree, and sometimes it's a bit challenging because, and I understand that we are full-time students, but a lot of students as well, we work full-time and still do university, and we do find it manageable. So I guess my question directly to you would be, why is it not a case where we're actively working, where we have the ability to do the role and we are finishing the degree, but yeah, we are, I guess, starting and then have to put a pause on it to then go back to school, and then, yeah.
So I understand. Frustration. Can you hear me? Okay. I understand that frustration is not encouraging. It's pretty demotivating. There are some organizations that allow young persons to continue to pursue their degree, and they offer employment, whether temporary or full-time. Where I work right now at Sagicor is one of those organizations, but it is not the majority. I would give similar feedback to what Anna mentioned earlier, where she stressed on resilience. It's going to be discouraging, but you have to continue. You don't have the influence at this stage to create those opportunities in these organizations, so you maintain the value that you receive from the internship that you had with the organization, and you use that to apply to other companies. because nothing is dictating that you stay at that organization that you started to develop that experience with. So that would be my encouragement to you. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be daunting, but keep going and use that experience to pivot in another role or another organization if you are open to doing so.
Okay, thank you. So Randy, this is more for the public sector. Me and I guess a lot of my peers, we don't usually see, I guess, how the private sector would put out their ads for positions and stuff open. It's very hard to, I guess, be able to find a resource to get entry into the public sector. For me, at least someone that wanted to go into the international business sector, I wouldn't know like the steps specifically to take. I'm not sure if you guys have any resources with that online or available and stuff like that, but I find it a little difficult to find these positions within the public sector.
So generally, vacancies in the public sector, for a large extent, are not advertised publicly. There are some that are advertised, so you have to go to the Ministry of the Public Service, their website, to see what vacancies are posted. Also consider, government has a qualifications order that you can Google online. Just Google the qualifications order of Barbados, and that will tell you for each government department what qualifications you need to acquire to work in a technical capacity, right? But Ministry of the Public Service, check that website, and you will see what vacancies are being posted there. But usually, most vacancies are not posted in the public domain.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One question from some of our students in a previous discussion. They have expressed concern that many times they look in the local news and see a notice that says, having found no suitable applicant, the company is now looking to outside of Barbados to fill the role. However, there's some who do feel they are qualified and weren't even given an opportunity or didn't even know that the post was available. How can we advise our students who share this concern?
Sorry. Oh, if they see an ad, they can write to the Ministry of Labor. So there's a memorandum of understanding between the Immigration Department and the Ministry of Labor. When those vacancies, when the employer applies for a work permit, that comes to us. An employer must show that they exhausted all the steps taken. So they place an ad in the paper, they review the vacancies, the CVs that came to them, and they have found no suitable person. There are some genuine occupational qualifications that may not be found here. And this is interesting because then no labor will be able to go to UWI or go to the Ministry of Education and say, well, you need to have curricula in these fields because we are seeing an increase in work permits in these areas, and therefore there's a skill shortage in Barbados, right? But beyond that, they can write to us and send their CV to us. Maybe we can send it to the Immigration Department, send it to the employer. It's not anything that we do, but if persons feel strongly that there are such skill sets here in Barbados, they are free to raise it with immigration. They can raise it with the Ministry of Labor, and we pass it to immigration for it to be reviewed and go from there. Beyond that, as you know, the issuing of work permits sits with the Immigration Department, Ministry of Home Affairs and Information, and not with Ministry of Labor. Yeah.
Yes. I don't know. So I just want to thank the audience again for coming here and the panel for joining us here today. It was a very insightful discussion. Thank you for the questions as well. And that marks the end of our panel discussion today.
Thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us today and to equip our students. And just before we close officially, I just want to say to you that, our panelists, they shared quite honestly. You've shared practical and empowering insights. And we do hope that our students are better able to advocate for themselves. To our moderator, who is a current student, we are quite pleased and we thank you for your thoughtful questions. I could see the panel thinking about how they would answer, so thank you for those thoughtful questions. And as we close, let this be more than a conversation. Really let it be a call to action. Opportunity is not only something we seek, it is something that we have to prepare for through action, resilience, you heard that coming up today, and continuous growth. So the next steps, students, are yours. Seek the opportunity, prepare for it, and have the courage to step into it. So thank you all, and now please make sure you visit all of the booths. Many of the companies here who were part of the panel are also represented here at the fair today. Thank you all. Take care.